Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We hope you are doing well. AFC Bournemouth lost another football match at the weekend in the FA Cup, this time against Burnley. With the club seemingly in a bad patch, the team in a bad patch, players underperforming, the fan base confused. Well, I felt it was time for maybe a bit of a therapy session, maybe a conversation, a chat, a debate, call it what you will. Think we just need to have a discussion about where the club is at the moment, where the fans are at the moment. There's 4 brains in this room and you're watching as well. And this video might be interactive under a premiere. So if there's a chat available, do use it. We want to know how you're feeling as well. If you couldn't watch this video live, then use the comments. They're there as well. A positive to start the video, though, please do subscribe to the channel. We are so close, I think, to 1,350. So thank you for your constant support through the season and hit the like button. We try to aim for about 50 likes on our videos. So do hit the like button. It helps this content grow and it shows your appreciation. Now, let's go around the room before we discuss what topics are on the table. John, you're at Manchester. I think that was the last time we spoke. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thanks, Kirk. It's been a good period of time where I've sort of been trying to avoid AFC Bournemouth Twitter. I think over the last sort of 2 weeks, maybe in general, because of how things have been. We'll get onto our individual thoughts as to the current situation in due course.
Social media will play a part in this video, but I can understand people that have tried to stay away from it. Aaron, how are you? A few conversations we probably need to have as we go into a busy and important couple of weeks for AFC Bournemouth.
Yeah, I'm good. Good. Happy New Year to everybody, whoever I haven't said so already. I wish I'd kind of taken a leaf out of Jon's book and stayed off Twitter, because it's probably not been too good for my mental health. It's a sticky patch, as you say, and something we need to dissect over the next hour or so.
We've also got David Codron, and if you are on Twitter, definitely follow this guy as well as Aaron, as well as John, because he does say some really sensible stuff on Twitter. So definitely follow him. He's from Australia. It's currently 6:45 a.m. How are you, David? Excited to have you here to have these discussions today.
Thank you very much, Kirk. Yeah, very well, thank you. Unlike the three of you, I've got the benefit of having some 30-degree weather during the days, so that sort of allows me to get over the overnight pain that has been watching Bournemouth since the return after the World Cup.
So there's going to be some topics on the table today. We will talk about the events after Burnley and some of the frustrations, whether you were at the game or not at the game, and some of the players that are now coming out and speaking to journalists. We'll also talk about the tough transfer window that's currently ahead of Bournemouth. Is it just Bournemouth or is it every club in the Premier League? Not sure. We'll have a discussion about that. And then we will talk about our current head coach, Gary O'Neill, who must be potentially under pressure, definitely under pressure with the fans, but we'll come to Gary O'Neill later on in the video. It's going to be sort of an open room discussion. I will sort of pose questions to the guys, but I want it to flow, because I think with a wider conversation, it maybe gives us food for thought. We have our own opinions, but listening to others maybe gives us a different side of perspective, and we'll see what happens. I will come straight to you though, John. There were boos at the end of that game. There were boos during the game at half time. There were boos for the team and there were boos for an individual. Let's separate them to start with. Boos for the team, although it's not great, and I'm not condoning it, people pay their money for their tickets. They go and support the team. 99.9% of people support the football team. And sometimes in the raw moments, when you're feeling like the team's underperforming and it's raining and it's wet, emotions take hold of you. Booing the team probably doesn't help, but sometimes it's just how you feel at the moment. And that's probably because you're trying to get a reaction from the team because they're underperforming.
Yeah, I watched the game. I wasn't obviously there, but I did watch the game up until about the 81st, 82nd minute, where if I was there, I probably would have walked out. But I certainly did my equivalent of just turning off my stream because I was pretty darn fed up at that point. And had I still been there at full time, I would have booed the team. And I don't think there's anything wrong with expressing your dissatisfaction as a fan base at the collectiveness of the club, the manager, probably not the owners this early in his tenure, but maybe certainly there's a case that I'm sure will come up to regarding higher ups within the club as well. And certainly your expression as a fan is valid. Booing is one of the very few sort of like very direct things that you as a team you as a fan base can show to not only the team, not only the manager, then the higher ups and the owner, to sort of express your dissatisfaction that things clearly are not going the way that you want it to. And that I would encourage any fan base to say when your team is not performing and things are not going your way. And we are finally scored our first goal since the World Cup. The return from the World Cup. We're now 12 goals conceded in 5 league and cup games. No victories in that time, no even draws in that time. Booing is valid at this point. Things have not been good, and we'll come on to performances later. What I don't understand, and I have a feeling that this may also be slightly related to the cup, the sort of difference we get in terms of fan bases that come to a cup game as well. I think this might have something to do with it. Is booing Lloyd Kelly individually. Now, I didn't catch this while I was watching the stream, but hearing afterwards mention of this, and I'm just baffled because I don't booing the team, booing it full time. Game's over. You're expressing your dissatisfaction. That's absolutely fine. But what do you hope to achieve by booing a player? Which is what I don't understand. You going to football matches, you are a fan. You go to your games to see your team win. If you can't see them win, as things are happening at the moment, then surely you want to see a performance. Surely you want players to try their hardest for the badge, for your team. You may well have been disappointed with Lloyd Kelly's performance, particularly on that 4th goal, but I'm not even sure he was in the top 5 worst players in the game. I don't, even if he was, what are you getting out of it? Like, he's going to have to turn up again in a week's time, and do you want him to suddenly keep thinking about the fact that the fan base hates him? It's like, what are you hoping to get out of booing an individual? Whilst you are free to express your dissatisfaction, I can understand it. It doesn't get you anything. That's the thing that confuses me the most, and it's incredibly disrespectful to someone that is still the club captain.
You've brought up Lloyd Kelly, so let's just quickly come to a little clip here, because 2 young players in our squad came out after the game, and Billing came out as well and spoke about it with the Solent. Not sure what platform it was on, but John Zamora and Jaden Anthony came out and made their feelings quite clear that the fans need to support the team. It's a long season. They can't stand by and listen to one of their teammates being booed. And I get all of that, Aaron. Now, there's 2 things that I need to sort of point out here. I don't think there's any fan, like 99% of fans that go to a game or support AFC Bournemouth want us to do well. So when they show frustration, it's because potentially we know we can do well, and it's just frustrating that we're not playing as well as we should be, or we're not taking advantage of the position that we're currently in. No one has any enjoyment at seeing players underperform, players getting booed. These are 2 players, mine, that are running out of contract. They've not even signed new contracts yet. Was it fair to even put Lloyd Kelly in that position on Saturday? I'm not even sure he should have been on the pitch at the time, but I'm not condoning again the boos that he received.
Well, I mean, whether he should have been on the pitch or not is a matter. I personally thought he was going to start the game to get some minutes in him. That didn't transpire, but Lloyd Kelly is a very divisive character. He is clearly an exceptionally young talent, a lot of pace. But he has a habit of, and this was evident last season, of a bit of lethargy on the ball, a bit of laxness, slowing the tempo down quite often. And then he'll pull out an unbelievable challenge and an unbelievable recovery run. But whatever you think of him, you cannot condone booing an individual player or any player. It's just, as John said, it's so counterproductive. It doesn't achieve anything. it will only put the guy under huge pressure in not just in that game, but in future games. And this is our captain. Now, we can debate whether Lloyd Kelly's the right captain. I've said for a long time when Scott Parker made him captain, I don't think he's the right player, whether that's weighing on him, as we've seen with many other players before. Obviously, he's come back from bad injuries. I don't think he's captain material at all. And maybe that's weighing on him. But parking that, booing any player, whether you're the captain or not, is just not acceptable. So for me, yeah, it's just, I didn't hear it either, actually. I didn't hear the booing come through when Lloyd got the ball. I don't know if it was straight after the goal. I don't know if it was when he came on the pitch. I mean, I've got no idea at all. But no, absolutely not acceptable. And I think, we can talk about, suddenly players coming out. I haven't seen this for years. Players coming out after games and saying this kind of stuff. I can understand why they said it and why Phil Billing also was very agitated on Radio Solent. I heard his interview, and I can understand it. But coming back to the larger booing of the team, and I agree with John here, perfectly acceptable with the way things are at the moment. Now, I might say something controversial. I actually thought the booing wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I generally thought it was going to be a crescendo of boos at half and full time, and it wasn't. It was audible, but it was a smattering for me. It was a bit like half-hearted. When you compare that to Southampton fans singing openly at Crystal Palace, very clearly, Nathan Jones, your football is, that's just a completely different level. Bournemouth fans weren't going for them. I didn't think it was, as bad as people made out, but every right to boo. And again, I would have booed as well if I'd have been there at the end of the game.
David, I think we all agree that booing an individual, booing Lloyd Kelly, our captain, is not great. It's not helpful. How did you feel about Philip Billing, but more so Jayden Anthony and Jordan Samora coming out to defend or work against the booing? I mean, they're two of our youngest players. I mean, how do you feel about that it's not maybe more seasoned pros that are doing it?
Yeah, I must admit I didn't see or hear the Phil Billing remarks, but I did obviously see JC and Anthony's responses, and yeah, I really liked it from young players, especially in this age of mental health and players' mental health, for their teammates to come out publicly and stick up for them. I think was really, really good. But I was surprised that it was just those two, and it wasn't the seasoned professionals. It wasn't the senior players of the squad. That being said, you don't know what they're doing behind closed doors with Lloyd and trying to galvanize the group and get a togetherness and a siege mentality that we have previously been known for. I absolutely can't condone booing an individual player. And it actually brought me back to 2 years ago when I may have made a comment out of frustration. I wouldn't have classified it as abuse, but it was definitely not helpful on social media towards a player, Chris Mepham, that was definitely under a lot of scrutiny at that time. And fast forward 2 years, and he's one of our most important players now, and the fan base loves him. And I think you just need to have that as a fan base, just have that moment of introspection. And I understand that, football's a passionate game and you want to voice your dissatisfaction, but just have to be mindful that these are young men, and the abuse doesn't help. The voicing your public dissatisfaction doesn't help. It was just my thoughts on it.
On the other side of the coin, I think it's absolutely okay to say how you feel. Again, as a fan, I know I pay thousands of pounds to follow the Cherries, and I feel that if I want to criticise a player's performance, I will do it. I just think sometimes you can cross the line. So I don't think it should stop us. I've done it before with, even probably now, I get frustrated with Philip Billing. But on the other side, I praise him when he has a good game and he has a game-changing moment. And I think that's where it's okay, because you can praise and you can criticise without crossing the line. Before we sort of move on to a tough transfer window that apparently Bournemouth have in front of them, opening this to the floor, are we worried about Lloyd Kelly? This was a guy that came from Bristol City, apparently was potentially a centre-back for England youth groups, came in, played left-back. That's where he played for Bristol City, I think. Then he told Scott Parker and the club he wanted to be a centre-back. I very much backed him last year to keep him as centre back. I know we utilised him at left back earlier on in that first Championship season. He had a good game at Norwich, but you can't keep chopping and changing if you're going to get the best out of this player. And he's not just going to be a jack of all trades and master of none. Then you've got to try and pursue the process. What I would say with Lloyd Kelly is I think he had a good season last season overall. I think he started the season well. I know we lost a few games before Scott Park was sacked. I know he conceded a penalty at Nottingham Forest, and then he got injured. Now, he's clearly not match fit. He's clearly struggling for form. And we know as well, because he's done personal videos with AFC Bournemouth about how his upbringing's been tough as well. And then the question mark is he strong enough to be a leader and a captain? And I want to believe in it, but I think that question's coming back round. It's an open floor discussion. Was it helpful really bringing on Lloyd Kelly at half-time on Saturday?
For me, I think that it wasn't necessarily Lloyd Kelly coming on, and I don't think that's necessarily... I wouldn't point to that as like any kind of key moment for Bournemouth, other than the fact that you're bringing on your captain, you're bringing on somewhat of an experienced player for his age. It was more the fact that Jordan Zamora was having a shocker, as was a number of other players. But you just like, when you've got an opportunity to make a change and you've got an experienced professional, why not make them? I think if you've gone around the ground at half time and gone, right, how many substitutions do you want to make? And I think at least sort of 80% of the crowd are going, can we make 7? Because it was that bad. And like Lloyd Kelly coming on isn't, for me, the talking point. Not that I don't understand where you're coming from, Kirk. It's more so that that's more an issue with the fans that were booing him than it is with Lloyd Kelly necessarily having a slightly poor performance. And let's not pick any bones about it. Like, you look back at that goal, and like Lloyd Kelly stood on the ball for about 10 seconds with it, and you think like, okay, you can lay some blame at him for that. But Sam Davis puts out a pretty decent tweet where he took a screenshot. I think it was 10 seconds apart, he says it was, between Lloyd Kelly on the ball and Lloyd Kelly playing the pass. And like the 7 players in picture are all stood in the exact same spot. Like, there's a lot of pressure on our centre-backs under Gary O'Neill's systems to start attacks, but you have to get the midfielders doing something. And eventually Ryan Christie makes a move. If someone shouts to him time, he's got 3 seconds to take 2 touches and bring that down. What does he do? He heads it back immediately to a Burnley player. And then Lloyd Kelly does fall asleep and let the attacker in. But like, I mean, how many of our defenders have done that 5 times this season? Like, it's just, he wasn't great, but like I said, I wouldn't put him in our top 5 worst performances on that day. And you've got 16 players to choose from. So I find it. There's a weird thing. It's a very Chris Mepham thing that I think a number of our fan base has on Lloyd Kelly for a very different reason to why we had issues with Chris Mepham, and that's partly down to just how, for the millionth time that I've said, Lloyd Kelly's lackadaisical. He's lanky. He's got the billing aspect of it that he looks like maybe he could do more. And that's what people have got against Billing as well. Still, the amount of fans that I've sat next to in the last 2 seasons that have nothing good to say about Billing. And then at Forest, he bangs the ball in the back of the net from 25 yards and he's collapsing in with everyone else. So, yeah, there's a weird thing about Lloyd Kelly. And that is partly to do with the fact that he has the armband. There's no doubt that I think that there is an element of that because you expect something more. When someone puts on an armband, you expect them to become Superman, the Superman of the team. You don't want them to become the Shrinking Violet. And Lloyd Kelly isn't the most vocal. I don't think he's the quietest person on the team, but he's not a shouter. He's nothing like Elphick was as a captain. And we've had other captains in the past that have obviously been very, very active, very vocal, very strong characters, big characters, and Kelly has never looked like a big character. Things obviously are different in the dressing room, but I think there's a lot of factors that just mean that something. I don't want to point too many fingers at Kelly for that game because I don't think there should be a much bigger collective issue that we're looking at rather than focusing on Kelly too much. And that's the vocal minority I'm having issues with there.
Well, I think Kelly's an exceptional talent. I think there is a brilliant player in there, and he has been beset with injuries. But And the issue is as well, although results haven't been great pre the World Cup, I personally think Mepham and Senesi had developed a bit of a relationship and a partnership, and they balance each other well, and they've both been playing well. So I think a lot of people felt, again, results weren't great, but a lot of people felt post World Cup, as soon as Lloyd Kelly's fit, which is obviously great news, he was shoehorned into the team because he's the captain, I think. Either shoehorned into a 3, which a lot of people don't like, but that's for a different day, or shoehorned in. I know Chris Mepham was ill. I think for the Palace game, Meps was actually better, but was on the bench. So he was kept in the team. Ironically, and I guess it goes back to what you said, Kirk, ironically, and you might disagree with me, guys, but I actually thought at Manchester United, when he was left back, he actually had a pretty good game. I don't particularly want to see him there, but then I'm thinking, well, do I want to see him there? Because Meps and Senesi have had a good partnership, and Jordan Zamora, much as I love the guy, is out of form at the moment and not playing particularly well. So he did have his best performance at Manchester United. He was one of the better players for me at Manchester United, and was great. So I don't want to see him at centre-back in the 4 at the moment, because I want to see Meps and Senesi there. I know Senesi also made a terrible mistake on Saturday as well. But that's the difficulty I've got.
And that comes back to, again, the point that we're going to make, that he's being pushed out to left back. Then he comes in and says, look, I want to be a centre back. Then he struggles for form, pushed back out to left back. And I think some of us would like to see him at left back or centre back, what some of us would like to see him at. But he's obviously struggling a lot at the moment, and clearly what happened at the weekend didn't help. So we want to get the old Lloyd Kelly back, and a player he can be a strong player for us in this team. Now, something that's really important for us in January, David, is a transfer window. We were told by our new incoming owner, who has now been telling us that we're not going to get relegated, that we will make signings. I've said at the weekend and been quite vocal in the fact that we need upgrades massively, players that can come into this squad and add value, but not cause us to move other players around. We know today, as we're recording this, that some players are on their way out. Jamal Lowe, Emi Marcondes, potentially loans, potential sales, not unsurprised in there. It's a tough window, though, David, we're being told. Is it a tough window for just AFC Bournemouth, or is it a tough window in general, because there are other clubs below us that are making signings?
Well, it's definitely a tough window for us, with all the instability at the moment around Gary O'Neill and the comments that are being labelled. It's going to be very difficult, I imagine, to try and convince top quality talent to come to a club where the manager is a bit iffy at the moment, and Premier League survival is also a bit iffy. But in saying that, there's money to splash around, so hopefully the lure of the pound sign is something that can counteract that and bring some players in. Definitely need it. I listened to your response on Saturday, Kirk, and I think Ben Brereton Diaz is absolutely the right sort of player to bring in. I think some players that, if we were to go down, that can really establish ourselves as a top team in the championship and create a force there, but also can flourish in the Premier League as well. So we'll wait and see, I suppose.
John, £50 million Blackburn want for Ben Brereton Diaz. Why are we not pursuing this deal? We might be, but we're not hearing about it.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think I've really heard any. I mean, I've heard tons of rumours, but if a rumour disappears within 24 hours, it was never concrete. And I don't think there's anything that's really stuck around, apart from Semenyo was sticking around for a bit from Bristol City, but I'm not entirely sure whether anything's going to happen with that either. Ben Brereton Diaz is exactly the kind of profile that we need to be looking for. Players that are near the top of the championship in terms of quality, without a doubt. And Brereton Diaz has a little bit of flexibility in terms of playing as a number 9 or as a left winger, and is also only got 6 months left on his contract. So 15 million is the right kind of price range for us as well. And I think it will be a sensible one to do, provides more competition in that position. And, we've got a number of different positions we definitely need more competition in, without a doubt. And it's going to be a tough one. But at the same time, you've already had Wolves Wolves brought in a top class manager, and then they went and signed a striker for 40 million, someone whose actual goals record isn't actually that great, but certainly is someone that's very highly rated and is willing to spend, splash the cash to bring in a striker to get them the goals that they're desperately missing. For us, it's creativity. We're massively missing creativity. And that's probably the biggest thing we need, along with, shoring up the defence and getting, well, to be honest, we need basically something in every position at this rate. But it's the quicker we get the business done, the better. But at the same time, we don't know what's necessarily going on behind the scenes, because I'm sure the owners won't have been impressed with the 5 performances so far. So, and we don't know how cutthroat Bill Foley's going to be. I mean, I'm being very presumptuous here, because I think just because the fan base is very much turning incredibly quickly against Gary O'Neill, but there is more to it than just him, and we need to see more from a lot of aspects of the club to get us out of this poor rut that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, I look at signings potentially, Aaron Semenyo, and we've been linked with him before. And I think that it's not a signing right now. He could potentially be a signing for the future, but we need something right now. I know that potentially the Bournemouth fan base are creating a Danny Ings rumour. I don't know how solid that is. And as much as I think that Danny Ings has got Premier League experience, he'll score goals, it creates a similar problem to what we have. I love Kiefer Moore, but I think it creates an issue for Dom Solanke and Billing. If we bring Ings in, it doesn't solve that problem. And I said a few weeks ago, and it might have been with a preview with John, that maybe it's Moore or Solanke. And John's right in thinking it's likely going to be Solanke. But the way we've moved him around, we haven't got the same player that we got last year, albeit in a different league. Those type of signings are just going to potentially create more issues.
I mean, potentially. I mean, we need help. Scott Parker was right. He went about it the wrong way, but we clearly need quality added to the squad. It's very Bournemouthy, going back for one of our former players. I'm not saying I wouldn't like Danny Ings at the club. He's clearly got an eye for goal. He scored a great goal the other night. He's clearly got a lot to give. Looking for the players at top of the Championship might be the market we're in. I think a lot of fans are going to be very disappointed, or potentially very disappointed, with some of the talk that's been going on around. We've been disappointed before with certain names banded around. We need proper quality. Look, there's no doubting January is a tough window. Eddie Howe always said it was a tough window. Who wouldn't want to play for Eddie Howe as well? It is a notoriously tough window. You're looking at other players coming to the end of their contracts, or players who are, who are obviously doing well, or mid-season and doing well for their respective clubs. But I think what's beginning to narc a little bit, and look, there's still time. Obviously, it's nice to get players in early in January. It's always better, but most important thing is you get players in, hopefully before some upcoming games. You're obviously hearing from around various mouthpieces like Chris Temple, for example, and Mark McAdam, saying it's a very difficult window. It's difficult for everyone in Bournemouth in their league position that they're currently in. And as you intimated, Southampton who are just as bad a form as us, the bottom of the table, have made one decent signing and another one on the way. Alcaraz is on its way, apparently. Two good signings. So, league position, that doesn't really wash. As you said, Leeds about to spend £30 million or something. I know these are bigger clubs than us, right? But, we've been a Premier League club, as I said, 6 out of the last 8 years. We've got to get out of this mentality now of what we don't deserve to be in the Premier League. What do we know? What do people expect? I said 6 out of 8 years in the Premier League is no mean feat. So we've obviously got the cash. I think that's the question. We have got the ability now to attract players. But again, we're going to come on to it later. For me, a massive factor has to be who can Gary O'Neill attract? Who can Gary O'Neill, Tommy Elphick, and Sean? Who can the management team attract? And not only that, but obviously his position is very much up in the air at the moment. So no one knows what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. So has he got the ability to attract, if not retain players? And that's for another day as well. Having said that, I've got some bit of breaking news here on Twitter from Chris Temple. Here you go then, AFC Bournemouth fans. As previously reported on Sony Sport, that progress of Bill Foley's takeover of Lorient was advanced, and that one of their top targets, the top players was a target, Dango Utara. Looks like he could be, well, I'm not saying on his way to us, but it looks like there's a big link there from Lorient.
Easy for you to say. Glad you said it. Why?
Just as well, sorry, just from Twitter while we've been recording, James Hill has been announced has gone on loan to Hearts of Midlothian as well. So peek behind the curtain is exactly when we're recording as well, because that's within the last sort of 20 minutes.
Are we creating space? Are we creating space? Why can these other clubs that have got progressive models find these players that we somehow don't really know a lot about, but they come in and they're very, very good players? Why can these other clubs do it, John or David?
You can go, John, if you like.
Okay, yeah. I think Aaron hit the nail on the head somewhat in terms of the management is that there's definitely players come to a club for a number of reasons, and one of those will be the manager. At the moment, we don't have a pull to bring in the better to bring in the better players in terms of like. Even a sort of mid-level player, a player that's going to come in as the so what do they see from Bournemouth as a step? Can they see Bournemouth as a stepping stone? Which I don't have any issue with a player that if they're going to be very good comes in and sees Bournemouth as a team, they go like, I'm going to get a couple of good years with this, but then I'll be so good, I will perform so well because that's a great motivating factor. If you want someone to perform well for you, say that you perform well, you can get a move to City, United, Liverpool, whatever it is. But like. If you come into a team that's this far down in this poor form with a manager that you don't know what's going to do with you, there's no motivation to make that move. It's in the past, it's not like we haven't brought in players that have hit the ground running or have been discovered to be better than you thought they were. The likes of Nathan Ake, David Brooks coming in from the Championship and hitting the ground running. It's not like Lewis Cook. It's not like Lewis Cook has maybe been the player that we hoped he might turn out to be. That's mostly down to injuries, but certainly bringing him in from Leeds was a great signing. There'll be a number of examples. There's probably more that haven't done it than have, but I think it is a tough one because not every signing can be a success, and Bournemouth are looked at does have a particular reputation in terms of picking up the trash from Liverpool because of how many deals we did with them. And let's face it, one of those has worked out, and it took him a few years as well. So there's so many factors at the moment because you've got a new owner as well who's finding his feet, and he's not brought in anyone new underneath him. He's still got the same people that were there before. We've still got the same scouting department that we've had for the last few years, minus Eddie Howe's cousin, was it, that moved on with him to
Andy
Newcastle? Howe. Yeah, minus Andy Howe, we've got the same scouting department, as far as I'm aware, that we've had for the last half a decade. There's a number of things. I think it's a tough one. I would say that I do think that there's an element that the fan base aren't helping themselves at this point as well, which is something I wanted to bring up at some point. Is that I think this level of toxicity has partly been brought on by the takeover. I think there's a lot of fans that have suddenly just decided, oh, wow, we've got money, let's do something with it. And then when Gary O'Neill's made permanent, you kind of go, well, Bielsa to O'Neill, which. The question is not, is it O'Neill or Bielsa? The question is, where are all the other candidates? Really, the question should have been. And I still stick by that. I felt that out of O'Neill and Bielsa, O'Neill was the one I think just about edged it. But again, that's the wrong question. So there's a lot of that sort of toxicity by just thinking, let's go out and do something with it. And it's just not that simple. Yes, things have been bad. Things have been really bad. And we'll come on to sort of performances and style at some point. But there needs to be some level of realism. I think that some of these fans need to sort of pull themselves back from thinking about Cloud9, that as soon as Foley comes in, we're going to buy, players that you've never heard of and suddenly make 50 signings in January. Bill Foley is still the 18th richest owner in the Premier League. Like, we moved from a multi-millionaire to a billionaire. That's still small potatoes in this league. Bill Foley is richer than we've ever had an owner. He's still he's still in the relegation zone of owners in terms of wealth in the Premier League. So I think we as fans need to have some reality check. I'm not saying that you shouldn't it's not valid that you're pissed off about all our performances. We all are. But there's a lot of additional toxicity, I think, at the moment on Twitter coming about from just a level of expectation that's bigger than they really needs to be. And signing players is very much part of that. We need to be a little bit more head in the ground rather than the clouds at the moment, I think, in terms of possible signings.
We'll see what the fans have got to say in just a moment. David, finally on the transfer window, where are your expectations right now?
Well, like Jon said, I don't think you can just splash money around for the sake of splashing money around. I think Newcastle have done it well with their takeover. They haven't gone crazy per se with the signings that they've made. But that being said, I mean, I don't know how much trust we have in our scouting department to pick the right players. So really, I don't know where we're going to go. I know that we do need someone and we have to do something. But who those players are, I guess I'll just wait and see. There are people with more experience than me making those decisions.
It may cost us a few extra quid. Right. We're going to talk about Gary O'Neill at the end of this video then. So if you saw my match reaction after Burnley, I just felt like I had to say it how it was. It was about 45 minutes after the game. And no, I was disappointed. I was low. You know, again, it's another performance that I was frustrated with. And I've said quite a lot. So as I said, if you haven't seen that video, pop over there. It's about 11 minutes long after this video and you'll see how I feel. And I pretty much said it from start to finish, where I was before Gary O'Neill got the job to where I am right now. What we did ask, though, yesterday on Twitter. Now, Twitter doesn't confirm the whole fan base, but it gives you a gauge of AFC Bournemouth fans on that social media platform. We'll talk to the guys in a moment and see how they're feeling about Gary O'Neill. But we asked you to tell us in 5 words how you're feeling about AFC Bournemouth at the moment. And let's just mention a few. And this is what you're saying: embarrassed, angered, frustrated, disappointed, hopeful. Matt's well up for Brentford away. Furious at the lack of action, said Longy. More were coming through, pretty low to be honest. Legacy wasted, back to Tim Pot. Loyal but frustrated, no signings. Action needed by Mr. Foley. Where is the checkbook? Time for Gary to go. Losing my enthusiasm to watch. Frustrated, concerned, but always loyal. Stay with us. Gary had his time already. Come on the Cherries, says Mark Singleton. Gonna need a new coach. Helen's disappointed. Simon Kaye's reflecting. Mark Cole wants a new manager, I think, soon. Otherwise, we might be down. Sammy, together, anything is possible. Bored, one word is enough. Embarrassed by conceding silly goals. Also embarrassed by the boos of the fans inside the stadium. Excited because of the takeover. At least it's not under Paul Groves, says Gail. Get him gone now. Final couple coming through. Alex says, when at Brentford, it'll be Gary O'Neill's Barmy Army again. Look, guys, if you can read a room, you can read a room. And we know that AFC Bournemouth have eyes on Twitter. They might not admit it, but they know what the fan base are saying. They can hear what the fan base are doing inside of the stadium. Aaron, we gave a job, the biggest job, the hardest task to an inexperienced guy. And I said that this job would be very different to the one he previously held that had no pressure. Our fear was that he would lose all the games up to Brentford. He's done that. What now?
I mean, just to go back one little step here, so talk about the toxicity, and I know social media does play a part in this, but I've supported Bournemouth for 37 years now, and we have, to get some perspective, we've obviously been in far, far worse positions than this, dire straits. I mean, everyone knows it. Everyone knows the story's not going to go on about it. We've had some pretty horrendous managerial appointments before. Jimmy Quinn, Groves, go back 30, whatever it might be. And clearly we're in the Premier League, so putting those things aside, and we're not even in the relegation zone, right? At the moment. I can speak for, I shouldn't be feeling like this. I feel that there's a level of toxicity around the club at the moment, which I haven't seen for many a year. Now, obviously, many of those years were with Eddie Howe, right? But and many of those years were in League Two when it was crap football, and we didn't have anything to expect. But we're in the Premier League, right? As I said earlier, we've been in 6 years out of the last 8 in the Premier League, and my frustration was, and it's no surprise to anyone, I never thought Gary O'Neill was right for the permanent job. As I said, he lost 4 out of his 5 previous games before the World Cup. I was one of those fans in the Everton game, singing his name and thanking him for the job he'd done. And it was quite explicit from Neil Blake that was one of the reasons they gave him the job, because they thought the fans wanted him, rather than saying thank you and goodbye. It's quite telling that we haven't heard that song once since. Well, not even at Chelsea, which was the first league game back. That song hasn't been sung since at all. I remember even some of the difficult games under Scott Parker last season, the We Got Scotty Parker song was still sung. That Gary O'Neill song hasn't been heard since the Everton games. So that's quite telling. So maybe if Neil Blake can read that room, then he can maybe read that the other side of the coin. We've now got a manager who's lost 9 out of 11 games. He got the job off the back of the Everton, the good week against Everton. And, you mentioned before, we're pointing an inexperienced manager. He wasn't an inexperienced manager. He wasn't a manager, right? He's never been a manager of any football club. And I'm not all pointing the blame at Gary O'Neill, because why wouldn't he take the job, right? I mean, you can question whether he was arrogant to take it, whether he was ahead of his time, or whether he cut crosses. But ultimately, he was offered the job. Who of us would have turned it down within reason? My feeling is that this is still very much Bournemouth mentality. We are basically a Premier League club now, have been, as I said, for many years out of the last few, with still basically a League One, League Two setup. Because even under Jonathan Woodgate, we brought Joe Jordan in with a bit of experience. Under Jason Tyndall, however that went, we brought in Graham Jones. Wasn't always the most popular, but he's clearly a very highly rated coach, doing well at Newcastle. For Gary O'Neill, he hasn't even got an assistant manager. I think we're the only club in the country without an assistant manager, apparently. That's out of the 92 Football League clubs. We've promoted 2 club legends without a shadow of a doubt. Well, certainly one of them is a massively club legend. The other one is a great player for us over the years, who haven't really got many of their coaching badges. They're floundering. If we were in League One or League Two now, this would be the perfect managerial setup, right? I'm really, really struggling with the situation that we put ourselves in here, because I'm not saying Marcelo Bielsa is the right person. John put out a video which made a lot of sense, right? But there are other managerial candidates out there potentially, and I think all I say is I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised at the situation, and my worry is that, did I think he'd be sacked after Burnley? Probably not, because then it's 4 games into his permanent job. We've got Brentford away next, which is obviously very tough. Then we've got Forest at home, which is huge. Then we're nearly at the end of the window. What happens after that? I can't see anything particularly changing, and I haven't even talked about the style of football yet, or the setups, or the strategy, or the plan, or lack of it. I'm just talking about purely that I'm not sure what Neil Blake and Richard Hughes expected when they gave Gary O'Neill the permanent head coach job of a Premier League club.
John, should we be surprised that he hasn't got an assistant coach? You said after Manchester United that he needs help. Should we not be surprised that he hasn't got an assistant coach? I mean, if you're trying to tempt experience to be under him, is that not just as difficult as trying to bring good players in to the team when you're falling down the league and not performing very well?
Yes, I do agree with that, but I would also say that it surely should be much easier to bring in an experienced assistant or an experienced coach than it would be to get in an experienced manager, because you are not at the forefront. You're kind of in a no-lose situation as a coach, because really, outside of very rare instances, when do coaches really get brought up anywhere? Like, the manager is the forefront of the club. Owners are the people that are making the decisions, or the chief exec or whatever. But the manager is the face of the club. The manager is everything to the club when he's in charge. And coaches come and go. Coaches can come and go just as much as players can. In fact, managers obviously more so. In fact, but I would understand there is a level of difficulty in terms of how many coaches are there out there that have experience that aren't already sort of ensconced with the manager they prefer to work with. which I think is very definitely a point, is to sort of say, like, I mean, you got Eddie and JT. Like, JT stepped out of Eddie's shadow for a year and went, no, I think I like just going back to what I know. So there is difficulty in that. I definitely agree with you there, but I would be amazed that there isn't anyone with about a decade odd experience. Like most coaches that have a decent level of experience have 10, 20, 30, 40 years of experience. It doesn't need to be an old head, but it needs to be someone that can come in, provide a different perspective, give some more support than he will get from Elphick and Cooper, as Aaron pointed out, probably have barely got past their first few coaching badges. I think it's still very much a concern when you look back, thinking about the fact that there really wasn't anyone that we were linked with beyond Bielsa. The Knutson link was very much fan driven, because I think it was a really sensible look. Like, if it was at a good timing as well, because of the Norwegian league was coming to its end. I'm not sure whether he was out of contract. I think he's probably still at the club I think he's still got a year at that club and obviously still there, but it would have been the perfect opportunity to approach them and give him the opportunity to spread his wings elsewhere. It's a step down from a Europa League or whatever team to near the bottom of the Prem, but it's what manager doesn't want to come and coach in the Premier League? You can definitely, with the money that's coming in, you can do something there. And the fact that it really did seem to come down to two names without anyone else being linked, I think, okay, yes, there would have been a lot of conversations internally, but clubs leak names, and they leak names for a reason, and nothing but Bielsa got leaked. And that shows that either nothing happened or very little happened with a number of managers, and that's a failing of the higher management. And as has been pointed out quite well by more experienced heads than me, it's a bigger problem with Blake and Hughes to an extent, but without a doubt Blake. And Foley coming in with his first football team, I think has tried to lean on someone that's been in that position for over a decade, and maybe has been, I think duped would be a harsh word, but somewhat of an accurate one. It's a concern without a doubt. And even if O'Neill is moved on, let's say he got to Forest, and bearing in mind that if we lose away at Brentford and at home to Forest, I think a lot of fans are probably kissing our season goodbye if that does happen. At that point, who are you getting in? Like really, who is legitimately taking a sinking ship? And even one with a lot of money for its size, who is taking on a sinking ship at that point? And are you going to trust two people that seemingly have completely failed to spread their wings and cast a wider net to bring in someone when there was an opportunity to give someone basically a full pre-season with his entire team over the World Cup break, and now they get maybe a week after Brentford if you bring someone else in after Forest? It's not just Gary O'Neill without a doubt. But
John or David or Kirk, I guess for that matter, so then we can go over and over about whether he should have got the job, shouldn't have got the job. We are where we are right now. It's irrelevant, the history. Should we pull the trigger now? Now, John made a very good point in a tweet, I think it was, John, and I completely concur with this, that sacking him now and then putting Sean Cooper in interim charge again is good. Well, I say it couldn't be worse, but it's not going to improve anything, right? But so I would like to think the club would be looking at other candidates. For me, I'll lay my cards on the table. I think he should be relieved of his duties. I'm going to say sacked and chucked. Relieved of his duties now, because I never thought he was right. Because while we still have a chance of some potentially winnable games before it's too late, we've got to pull the trigger now. I just don't think they're going to do that. I don't know what the other guys feel.
So I agree, and I'll come to you, David, to actually sort of echo that over. And that's what I've said over the weekend: is we've created a problem, and that's why the appointment was so poor. Because if it didn't work out, and for me there was a high chance that it wasn't going to work out, that we've now weakened our next hand, and the next manager doesn't have time to implement anything. Big matches have gone, potentially, if we've lost them, season defining, like John said. And that's the situation we're in now, David. where were you at with Gary O'Neill? Because I don't really know. What I was confused with, David, to be honest with you, was that Bill Foley, new owners come in, pretty much gone on every TV locally to say that we're going places, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're signing 5 players. And the guy we put in charge has not even been a manager. That's where I saw the flaw.
Well, my perspective, and this is just presuming because obviously I haven't been involved in the process, but if you're going to do a thorough recruitment process, evaluating a number of candidates, and you come to your preferred candidate and you say, this is the guy that we want, you don't give him 18 months contract. So to me, this is that they've looked at other candidates, whether they've put all their eggs in the Bielsa basket and haven't got him, and all the other candidates have gone away and said they're not interested or they're not willing to wait the 3 months or whatever it took to appoint someone, and they've been left with, well, we've lost out on Bielsa. We've always had this safety net here in Gary O'Neill, who's not doing the worst job. If worst comes to worst, we'll go with him and we'll just commit to him for 18 months. So that's my reading of how it's happened, but obviously I haven't been involved in it. The problem with relieving him of his duties now, or sacking him, or however you want to word it, is we only appointed him 6 weeks ago. If that was what actually happened, well, who's available now that wasn't available 6 weeks ago that we would have ideally given the job to?
And who wants this?
So
who wants it now?
Yeah. Well, who wanted it then, and then who wants it now? What is that? What's changed in that 6 week period that Gary O'Neill has been the permanent manager? I mean, obviously there's things that could have changed, and if there is a ready-made, experienced replacement ready to come in, then I wouldn't be against it. But I wouldn't be just sacking him for the sake of he's not performing. Let's just find somebody else. Like, you've got to have a thorough, diligent process
to
pick the right manager.
Would we respect? Sorry, David.
No. You go.
Well, would we respect Gary O'Neill if he stood up and said, I can't do it? He probably wouldn't say it like that, but he would accept defeat. Would we respect him if he walked away?
Of course, I'd respect him if he walked away. Look, for all my criticisms, he's clearly got the best intentions. He's not losing games on purpose. He's not, but he's just out of his depth for me. So first of all, I don't think he's going to do that. Look, managers are always going to say things after games. Every manager says things after games. Some of his comments recently have really baffled me. He's not going to turn around and say we've been crap, every single week. But some of the excuses, some of the games, some of the we're going to pick it up, and most recently, so it's just some of those, some of his excuses or reasonings have been baffling. Some of his performances have been baffling. I think Ahmed Shubal pointed out really well yesterday. Did a really good thread on Twitter talking about how he sets up defensively, but he doesn't have any pace on the counter attack. So it's counterintuitive with a low block home to Burnley. So go ahead and read Ahmed Shubal's multiple tweets on that. It's really, really good read. But there's so many baffling decisions. I'm not going to go through them all now. It's not right to do it. But I just think that David's right. You can't just get rid of him and say, right, off you go, Sean and Tommy. We'll look for someone else now. But that's a failing higher up, as John said earlier. That's a massive failing higher up. But it's you have to have contingency plans in place, or as I said, 9 defeats in 11 games, whatever it is. You have to be having conversations about it. You can't just hope it's going to suddenly turn around. And if it does turn around, then fine. If it doesn't, you've got to have a contingency plan.
I agree that
the circus was the contingency plan. Sorry,
he was.
I'm saying I think Gary O'Neill was the contingency plan.
You might well be right. Well, then there's far bigger issues than is evident. Then if that's the case,
they're back tomorrow. Let's get someone in place for training. Look, John. Look, we're watching Gary O'Neill's football teams at the moment that are very painful to watch in the first half. You know your stats very, very well. There's a momentum bar on SofaScore that I'm very interested in to see how the overview of the match plays out. We very much are not in football matches until the games have gone. That's how many of the football matches are played out since he's got this job. So then what I'm looking for, John, is I'm looking for someone in a post-match interview to convince me that he has a plan or a way out of this. I don't see that. I look at a guy staring past a camera, trying to convince himself that the answers he's giving are the right ones. He's tripping himself up. Fair enough. We all do that, even on YouTube, and we maybe say stuff that's taken out of context. I'm not seeing a guy that's going to convince me that he's going to turn this form around and make us into a good team that's going to finish at least 17th. And I'm not surprised, and I don't blame him, because he's in this role, he's corner cut his career, and this is a big ask. Are you seeing a guy in post-match that looks comfortable, happy, and has the answers?
I mean, if I'm perfectly honest, since we've come back, I haven't watched a single one of his post-match interviews, because there's nothing that there's nothing that he could have said to me, basically, have any of the 5 performances since post-World Cup that would have convinced me anything other than it's not been great in those performances. I have heard a few of the quotes that have come out in recent interviews. I would say that I remember from what I've seen of him in previous post-match interviews when we were doing a bit better and whatnot. I mean, he's not quite the look at your toes Scott Parker fashion, but he's never been a guy that sort of looks the interviewer in the eye and speaks his mind. He's always been quite sort of cliched. He's always been quite a cliched manager in his talk about, like, the lads did well and we'll pick ourselves up and all the platitudes that you hear from 90% of football managers. I think he comes across better than the likes than say Parker in a lot of in the way that he says it. But like I said, Parker stares at the floor half the time, so it's not hard to do better than that. I think that some of the quotes I've seen, two quotes in particular I know coming out. One with regards to fans booing against Crystal Palace, I think it was, which was taken very much out of context. And I put a tweet out to say, like, guys, look, just understand that he's in a high pressure situation. He's not happy with the fans booing, but he's also not happy with the team's performance, and he wants to focus on the team. Let's not blow this out of proportion and pretend it's Scott Parker levels of stuff. But at the same time, after being at Manchester United and him coming and saying, if we play like that the rest of the season, we'll be absolutely fine. No. If you're a fan, you don't even need to have been to the game. You can be, if you were a neutral watching that match, you're wondering where the hell the goals are coming from, and you're wondering how Bournemouth are even going to stop the goals going in. Like, if you see a 3-0, I don't care that it's away at Man United and we expected to lose. We all expected to lose that game. The performance wasn't good enough, and it just wasn't.
It was a good 3-0 though, John.
Yeah, exactly. So the one thing I would do want to caveat to just pull some slight thing back for Gary O'Neill. I mentioned before I think I mentioned it before the Manchester United game when we did our preview, Kirk, that or it might have been after the Man United game. I mentioned at some point it looked like he was trying to. There didn't look like a cohesive plan. It looked like, I think I mentioned, like, he's got about 5 different jigsaw puzzles and he's trying to create one picture. Nothing seems to be quite fitting together. The issue that he has at the moment is that his initial plan A, which started working somewhat, was mostly due to the form coming in of Tavernier, because he wants a low block side with then to be able to hit on the counter with speed. And the only person that can actually do that in his entire squad that he trusts, seemingly, because I think the likes of Dembele could do it, is Tavernier, who is the dribbliest boy in the league. He's very good at what he does, even if it took him a while to produce the end product that he was sort of threatening to produce. Without Tavernier, his entire plan A is gone because he's not using Dembele, who's the only other person with the kind of speed and dribbling ability in the squad that can really replace Tavernier, but doesn't necessarily have the trust, I think, of the manager in terms of his defensive work rate. So his entire plan A is gone. So he has to create a plan B. And to be fair to Gary O'Neill, he has changed a little bit. He has got the team to press higher. Manchester United, we got caught out, but we were pressing higher. Against Burnley, we pressed higher, and we got a goal out of that initial press. He has tried to create a different way of playing, but it's still not going to come together very quickly. And it's almost a 180 to what he often does in terms of a low block and counter. He's trying to create a high press. He's trying to change something. He is trying things, but at the same time, it's not getting. He needs the players to buy into it as well. It's something I mentioned first game of the season. Parker completely changing things and turning it into a 5-3-2. He needed a result quickly in order to make the players convinced that it would work. He got that against Villa, then started changing things up in the next 3 games and completely lost the confidence of the players. Gary O'Neill may have had a lot of support from the players, but since the break, a lot of that will have disappeared, because as soon as the players start thinking he doesn't know what he's doing, that can completely capitulate aside. He is giving it his all. I don't doubt that, and I don't think any real fan should ever doubt that the manager, particularly someone who I think is as genuine as O'Neill is definitely trying. It's just not really. I can't see it happening until new players come in the door. All we get Brooks, Tavernier, and a few others back and in form. Lerma's in awful form. Laura's in awful form.
Neto's a big loss as well, to be fair.
Neto's a big loss as well.
And that is a big loss. But it was some of the comments, saying, it was in the BBC interview on Match of the Day, I think it was. I can't remember which game it was. And someone said, actually that's 6 defeats in 7 or 7 defeats in 8. And he said, and how are you going to turn these performances around? And he said, well, we did have good performances against Everton. And he goes back to the Everton game constantly because that's the only win he's had in the last 11. And after the Manchester United game, he said, well, we lost 9-0 at Anfield, So this is an improvement. He didn't exactly say it like that, but that's what he was inferring. He actually said, look at earlier in the season, we lost 9-0 at Anfield, we lost 3-0 at Old Trafford. Everton, who are bloody awful at the moment, and there's the one team we've actually beaten recently. They in the FA Cup, they actually took the game to a bit. They lost, but they took the game and they went a bit more toe to toe. They lost, the last minute. So that's a frustrating thing for me. And it's just, and people have commented on Twitter about Manchester United isn't season defining, and they're right, it's not. But you look at Southampton at home was. Crystal Palace at home was. When is the season defined? If when is the season defined then? And that's the problem. We've lost of those winnable home games have gone. And I think I said this to you, Co. After Forest, we've only got 3 home games outside the top 6. So it's going to be difficult.
Maybe in the next fortnight. We're going to wrap this video up in the next 5 or so minutes. Please do hit the like button, subscribe. If you're watching this back and not interactively, do let us know your thoughts in the comments. Just want to say a big thank you to our monthly members. Thank you for supporting the channel, and anyone who's donated. You can become a member or donate at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. Also, details should be in the description below. Also, thank you to our sponsors, Aquashine Exteriors. Right, guys, you've got about 1 minute, because I'm going to just close out my thoughts on this video about where you think we go from here in regards to supporting the team. So I obviously think that we should make a change. I agree that going around in circles and keep employing interim managers is probably not the answer. But again, maybe we get another little club bounce. I don't really know. But let's just assume that Gary O'Neill keeps the job for the next 2 weeks against Burnley and Brentford. We need something. We need something massively. Somehow we've got to go and get something from Brentford. I think they're unbeaten in 6 at home in the league. We know they're a very good team under Thomas Frank. I'm also potentially hearing that Tony's got himself fit. I don't know if that's true or not, but would not surprise me. And we can't lose at home to Nottingham Forest. And I really think it could be season defining. How are you viewing the next 2 or 3 weeks, David, to close out your thoughts on this video?
Yes, well, two big games. I think the Forest game is going to be critical. Not expecting too much from Brentford, but anything would be very much welcomed. I think from the team's perspective, they've obviously got to be together. They've got to find some way to galvanise that group and become together. And then in terms of the performances, they just have to be almost perfect in the way that they execute their whatever game plan is trying to be executed. And that means cutting out silly concentration-related goals to concede, be that set pieces or penalties or something. If we're going to get beaten, we've got to make the other teams beat us, not beat ourselves.
I totally agree with that, Aaron. Sorry, David. Is there anything else you wanted to add, David? Sorry.
I was just going to say, and then we've got to take our chances. We don't create that many, but we've got to be clinical on the other side of the pitch.
24 hours difference, just has a slight delay, so apologies there for cutting in front of you. I totally agree with David, Aaron. I want us to be a little bit harder to beat. We are too soft as a football team right now. The goals we are conceding are too easy. I don't mind losing. I don't mind getting relegated as long as we give it everything, we give ourselves a chance, and we are hard to beat. That's all I really want from here on in. Because Gary O'Neill said, after Wolves, I'm pretty sure, this team can compete. So don't start turning around to me now and saying, I need players through the door because that's the only way we can compete. That might be that we're going to lose a few more matches in this league this season. But let's be harder to beat. Let's be stronger. Let's be more ruthless. Let's get Jeff Lerma back doing what Jeff Lerma used to do. That's all I want, really, I think, Aaron, at the moment.
Look, we have got one of the weakest squads in the Premier League, without a shadow of a doubt. And, you know, the irony is, if you'd have told all of us at this stage of the season we wouldn't have gone in a relegation zone, we'd all have snapped your hand off. So it's a very strange situation we're in. But we do need quality. I still maintain, though, we could bring in 2 or 3 really top players if we can, and I still would have reservations over Gary, you know, going forward with that, because, you know, you still need to have a manager, a cohesive plan, someone they respect, someone they're playing for. You know, before the World Cup break, they stated that they all wanted him. They clearly were playing for him. You know, it doesn't look like that's the case now. I'm not saying they're not, but it doesn't look like it. So the next 2 weeks are massive. David was right. Brentford's going to be exceptionally difficult. I mean, even if Tony's not there, they didn't need him to beat Liverpool 3-1. So they've got a decent squad. Yeah, I'll be there. I'm not expecting much, but you want to be a bit more resolute and stay in the game at least. And then you come to Forest. Now it is a massive game, but even if we win that, the fixtures ahead are massive and very, very difficult. So what do I want to see? I think we need to hear a little bit more from Bill Foley. I think, you know, some of his comments have been a bit naive. I think he just needs to tone down a bit. The expectation levels, I think John mentioned earlier, has gone through the roof, but perhaps a bit, you know, the process, it's going to be a long process. You know, I am very relaxed about the future of this football club. And that's even if we get relegated. But I don't want to get relegated. And I think, you know, we have got a chance of staying up, because I do still believe in this squad. And I still believe with a couple of additions, we'll be good enough. With the right management team, whether that's Gary getting more help in himself or whether as a change is made. So the next 2 weeks are massive from people coming into the club, hopefully, and the results themselves. If we lose both games, then I think I can't see him staying, but then who knows what plan there is from higher up. But we remain optimistic whilst we're still above, and you know, there are 3 or 4 clubs who are probably similar-ish woeful to us, although Wolves will improve for sure.
John, I don't know many football teams that are excellent at shutting out football teams and winning. Probably on one hand, I can probably name a few good European teams that were good at it. A lot of Jose Mourinho teams were good at it. Pragmatic football generally is not successful, obviously down the bottom of the table. And I also understand that you just can't go gung-ho from minute 1 and leave yourself open. I think with Bournemouth, we need something in between to give us a chance, something right down the middle. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I'd like something that, as much as it fell to pieces straight after, I thought in the first 2 minutes against Burnley, we came out like we really had someone had lit a fire under the players, because the press was there, the aggressiveness was there, and then as soon as Burnley started getting on the ball and slowing the game down and making move at their pace, and then we gave up our first goal, you know, the confidence was shot. I'm hoping that, as an unintended side effect of the booing of Lloyd Kelly, there will have been some sort of solidification of the players around him and some sort of collectiveness that will hold through and to hopefully motivate the team. I just want us to see pull in some kind of performance that the fans can look at and go, the players did their best and the players were able to produce something against Brentford. I wasn't expecting us actually to get through against Burnley to be with what form we were in and what form Burnley were in. And if anything, I think us being out of the cup is a good thing because it focuses our attention. But the performance wasn't good. And that's 5 weeks in a row. That's 5 games in a row in League and Cup where it hasn't been. And even if you're not going to win, you want to see a good performance. And we haven't seen anything yet. We've seen flashes for minutes of a few of those performances. And we just want that to turn around. And the players and the manager are all responsible for that. It's not just Gary O'Neill's fault that some of the players have made howlers over the last few weeks. There's a collective responsibility. And I'm hoping that maybe some harsh truths were shown around the dressing room. But there are players whose form isn't good. and that needs to turn around quickly if we're going to have any chance of staying up. And if we don't get, well, to be fair, I think if the performance is as bad as it's been recently against Brentford and we get torn apart, wouldn't be surprised to see O'Neill go before Forest. I'm hoping that performance is good enough and the point return is good enough that O'Neill is still in the job, because it means that something has gone right. And that would be ideal. But I am with everyone else, most people, where I say that O'Neill's out of his depth at the moment and has a lot to prove, and a different manager would be better. But I don't know who that is, and I don't think the club knows who that is. And that's the biggest issue. So, yeah, I'm hoping to be positive. I'm hoping for good things. But again, that's in naivety rather than expectation.
Jon, thank you very much for joining us on this video.
No problem. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the people that stuck around with me speaking for over half of a 70-minute video.
Aaron, thank you very much, and we'll kick on because there's a preview coming for Brentford this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I hope everybody enjoyed our therapy session and you feel much better about everything now.
David, definitely giving us a perspective from the other side of the world. Follow David, as I said, and Jon and Aaron on Twitter. But thanks for joining us on this video with us.
Thank you, Kirk. Once again, great to be here.
We've gone on a little bit longer than we wanted to, but it happens because we get deep into the conversations, and obviously it's because we want Bournemouth to succeed and do well. We do hope you feel a little bit better about yourself. If anything, we've provided a video for you to get your thoughts off your chest. Put them in the comments. Let us know how you're feeling. And look, you never know. We might go and get a result at Brentford. We're due one against them, especially at their new ground. So that's us. That's what we've talked about. Maybe signings will be coming through the door very soon, but we'll be coming back to you with a new video very soon. But from me, Jon, Aaron, and David, we'll see you on the next one. Hit that like button and subscribe. Up the cherries.
Up the cherries.
Up the cherries.